landscape business, and I talk about how to start your business and get it to 100K. Here's what I'm talking about, this moral dilemma. Have you ever sold a landscape job? It could be a bigger dollar amount than you're used to, or maybe you get yourself booked out with way too many clients and customers and you've said yes, but you knew that you could do it. And maybe you booked yourself out for a few months and you have all these happy customers waiting to get their work done. And then all of a sudden your main employee quits, or you have 2 employees, or you get really sick, or you have a death in the family, or something breaks down, or it rains for like a month straight. And these things happen that are outside of your control, but you can't really tell if they're in your control or not, because if you were more prepared and you had more employees, or you were more successful, or had your act together. Well, I've been in positions before in my landscaping business where I've had to call customers and apologize and push things back up to 3 times. But this is not normal at all. Normally I'm like everywhere on time. I do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. And if I'm late, I call the customer. And if we're not there that day, we'll be there the very next morning. My communication, I mean, we've got a couple hundred positive 5-star reviews in my business. I love my landscape business. I love taking care of customers. It's a huge honor and privilege. And communication is everything, and integrity is everything. But I've gotten myself in a pickle before where I've booked myself out for 2.5 months. And then I've had employees quit and still trying to run the business, and I've had to jump out of the frying pan into the fire and just go work 12, 14 hours a day, and had to stop taking on new work for months just to make good on the promises that I made all these customers that were waiting. And it was like a thorn in my side, and I promised Mrs. Jones, I said I would be there, but I will for sure be there on Wednesday. And then it rains again and something else breaks down. Mrs. Jones, I know you don't care that all this stuff broke down, but I promise I will be there Thursday. And then there's a death in the family. And finally we get there the following Monday and we get it done. And Mrs. Jones was like, oh, well, it looks great. Took you forever. But then you're on. So what happens is there's this huge moral dilemma that pulls apart at the very fabric of your integrity, saying, oh my God, if things are this hard at this level, this little level that I'm at, how do people grow $5 and $10 million businesses? Do these big businesses that we look at, that's not a big business, it's still a small business, but are these businesses that we look at that look beautiful, like a symphony on the outside, are they actually helter-skelter on the inside, but they're just very good at concealing all that? Because I've went and looked at some of the people that are fantastically successful in business. I've looked up their business, did research, and find out that the people that I aspire to be like have tons of positive 5-star reviews, and their integrity is impeccable. Like sometimes I believe for the most time you can't even get to that level without having impeccable communication, and that's a great aspiration. But my point here is I'm reading an amazing book right now about business systemization and learning that you're only one person, and the money sustains the message. So if your model is profitable and you have the proper systems in place and you build the structure and the foundation, and see, you have the river and the river banks. Let's just go a little ethereal here. The river flows and the river banks contain the river, right? So if the river, this is so awesome. If the river is flowing too fast and too high of a rate, or too high, and the river banks aren't strong enough, they could collapse and the water just starts spilling all over the place. So what happens is your train isn't set up to take turns at such high speeds. It has to stay very slow. And every time you try to speed it up, it falls off the tracks. Everything goes helter-skelter, right? So those are key signals and indicators that it's time to build your train tracks stronger out of better material, or go back to the foundation and build the river banks. The structure in your business isn't supporting the flow, structure and flow. There needs to be more structure, more systems. My friend Brandon Vaughn talks about marketing, administration, production, and sales. He has these systems in his business that have allowed him to scale many multiple $1 million businesses. And it's fast. I know. It's my dog barking over there. And so I'm incredibly fascinated. And now what I'm doing is taking the time to go back and dive deeper, reading books about system line by line, hiring coaches and consultants myself. And I'm so excited because You know, this book I'm reading right now, this guy banged his head against the wall in his business for 15 years. And at the point where it was 3 a.m., he couldn't afford payroll. He was sleeping on the floor in his office, working 100-hour weeks, and his health was failing and everything because he literally was stretched so thin running his business. A great guy, great business. But he knew that he had like 48 hours and he was going to have to shut his whole business down. The whole thing was about to fail because he just couldn't make it work. And he waited till it got so bad. But in his pain and in his desperation, something happens when you hit rock bottom where this incredible wave of peace can come over you. When you know like it's actually over and you just failed. When all the anxiety goes away. Well, this incredible wave of peace came over him. He said it was like a spiritual experience. All of a sudden now, because not that he didn't care, but he was over it, he all of a sudden saw his business from a completely different perspective, and he saw it as a series of systems and subsystems. And basically went to work on his business instead of in his business, and then scaled his business to this until it was massively successful. So if you look at nature, if you look at the Fibonacci sequence, the way the flowers and the trees grow and the birds and the way everything is sequenced out